everyone. Welcome back to Sit for Change. As always, we're your hosts, Tammy and Martine, here to bring you exciting conversations about making events more planet and people conscious.
Today, we're diving into something super important for the future of sustainable events. How we can train, yes, train the next wave of professionals to plan events that don't just reduce harm, but actually create good in the world.
Absolutely, Martine. I think many people underestimate the global events industry and its power to influence the world's progress towards sustainability. If you think about all of the major festivals and conferences to small and local gatherings, all of these events bring people together and create opportunities for education, connection, and action. But to make a lasting difference, we need skilled professionals who know how to embed sustainability practices into every aspect of event planning.
Absolutely. And let's be honest. If we don't start getting this right, the only conferences we'll be attending in the future are ones about how to survive on Mars. And I don't know about you, Tammy, but I don't know how I feel about space food.
Me neither. That's why sustainability is no longer a nice to have, it's a we better do this or else kind of deal. So, in today's episode, we'll focus on the tools and resources and strategies that leaders can use to train their teams in sustainable event practices. Whether you're a manager overseeing a team or an individual looking to improve your skills, we got you.
But first, let's take a step back and revisit the why. Why is sustainability so important in event planning? Understanding the stakes will set the stage for the rest of the conversation. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, we've covered this topic in depth in previous episodes. So we're sharing the links below. But let's give you a quick crash course. Did you know that the global events industry generates millions of tons of waste every year?
That's right, Martine. Think about the single-use plastic cutleries, cups, banners, lanyards, wasted foods, the excessive energy consumption in gallons or liters of water that simply go down the drain. And that's just what we see behind the scenes as event planners when attendees leave. Most of the times, the attendees don't even see it.
Exactly, Tammy. The environmental impacts go beyond what's visible. For instance, there's the carbon footprint of transportation, such as flights, cars, and logistics for shipping materials. A single conference could mean thousands of people flying in from around the world. And that alone can contribute to massive greenhouse gas emissions, which we know impacts climate change.
And then there are social impacts. Events can disrupt local communities, especially when there's a large influx of attendees. Imagine a city's infrastructure being overwhelmed by traffic jams, stretched resources like water and electricity, and even increased crime rates.
That's true. Many events fail to consider social sustainability. For example, are we creating opportunities to support local vendors, reducing barriers for diverse participants, or designing accessible spaces that foster inclusion and community building?
Sustainability isn't just about going green, it's about thinking holistically, addressing the environmental, social, and economic impacts of events. By aligning with global efforts like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, event planners can truly make a difference.
And here's the big takeaway: events have the power to influence change. By integrating sustainability into planning, we don't just reduce harm, we create opportunities for education, advocacy, and positive impact.
Beautifully said, Martine. And that's why we're focusing today on equipping event professionals with the tools they need to make sustainability a core part of their work. All right, with that covered, let's shift gears and talk about building a strong foundation for training sustainable event planners. Martine, where should someone start?
It all starts with education. Professionals need the knowledge and tools to make informed decisions, right? So, the best place to begin your research is with the various educational programs created by professional associations like Meeting Professionals International, MPI, the Professional Convention Management Association, PCMA, and the Events Industry Council, EIC. Some of you may already be familiar with the EIC, are they most well known for their Certified Meeting Professionals CMP program, which I believe you have, right, Tammy?
Yes, I do. And they also have a sustainable event professional certificate program, which I've completed as well. And I will say it's very thorough. For any event planner who wants to focus specifically on sustainable events, I highly recommend that program. These two programs, the CMP and also the sustainability certificate program, both have application and exam costs associated with them, but these organizations also offer free workshops and webinars throughout the year. As individual planners, you're able to access these resources on your own, but some could be costly, like these exams. So, for the managers and senior leaders in the audience, a great way to aid in your team's growth and development could be to sponsor these fees for these resources.
Yeah, nothing says you're invested in your people more than providing them access to these resources for free. Also, those organizations are just some of the globally recognized ones. You're not necessarily limited to just three organizations. Many countries and regions have their own regional or local associations as well. So, for instance, in the UK, there is one called the Meetings Industry Association.
We can't also forget to mention the big one, ISO 20121, which is considered the beacon for practical frameworks for integrating sustainability into all stages of planning. These aren't just theoretical, they give you actionable strategies that planners can use right away.
Exactly. And another recommendation is to start auditing your current practices as a baseline. This means assessing everything from the types of materials you use to how you manage food and transportation. Tools like the Sustainable Event Alliance toolkits and templates can help you identify areas for improvement as you are going through your educational workshops and implementing new practices along the way.
And all of these steps help you build a better foundation for sustainable event planning. We know that most of us have been in the industry for a while and we have set practices or habits. So, very few of us are starting from scratch. Therefore, following this audit and adjusting process helps you slowly change some of those habits. For instance, the entire industry is slowly transitioning over to digital apps, which not only reduces paper waste, but also makes communication more efficient.
Yeah, and you know I'm super nerdy about tech. So I'm glad to see that transition and super excited to see how else our industry leverages technology.
Oh, for sure. And I think we could dedicate some episodes just on event technology.
That's it. I'm adding one to our list. Meanwhile, another thing to think about is that partnerships are key. Collaborate with other event planners, eco friendly vendors, and venues that align with your sustainability goals and also can guide you along this educational journey.
That's a great suggestion. I think it tends to be easier to manage expectations when you and your vendors are speaking the same language. And I mean that figuratively, not literally, but obviously, literally would help too.
Very true, Tammy. Now, for those who don't want to commit to an extensive certificate program just yet and simply want some self paced learning opportunities without the pressure of an exam, we have some resources for you as well. Ones that you can peruse at your own leisure.
I don't know about you, Martine. One of my favorite types of self-paced learning options tends to be reading books.
Oh, yes, I can't tell you how many books are on my to read list. Actually, most of the ones we're about to mention are already on my list to read.
Nice. The first couple of book recommendations we would probably be the first two by Meet Green. One is called Meet Better 167 Easy Ways, and the other is called Simple Steps to Green Meetings. We've cited Meet Green on a couple of our previous episodes, and that's because they're probably one of the leading sustainable event management agencies in our industry.
Absolutely. They also provide tools like carbon calculators, which are essential for measuring the environmental impact of events, from energy use to travel emissions.
Absolutely. And this next one is probably at the top of my list. It was just published last October in 2024. It's called The Customer is the Planet, a handbook for sustainable business. It talks about why what the problem or opportunity is in each key area of sustainability, as well as offering guidance that helps the reader grow awareness, increase desires to change, and equips the reader to take action, measure, report, and improve.
Now, this next one is a podcast. So, for those busy parents out there like myself who sometimes don't have the quiet time to sit down and read a book, it's called Transformers Sustainability Changemakers. This podcast focus a bit more on the policy side of things, and they interview environmental influencers and even politicians who are driving the transition towards a green economy.
I love that you included this one, Martine. Events don't happen in a bubble, and it's important for event planners to be aware of how global economics and governmental policies could affect events. For instance, shortly after the pandemic, we saw price increases and supply shortages, and majority of it was influenced by shipping delays, manufacturing delays, all as a result of COVID.
That's very true. I do remember that, and especially when companies were first starting to go back to in person events.
Yeah. Now, the next one on the list is more of a case study documentary, and it's one I've been wanting to watch, and I think you'll be interested in this one, Martine. It's a movie called A Small Section of the World. It follows a group of women in Costa Rica as they build the first women-run coffee mill to help build sustainable growth in their communities after a crisis had led the men out of their village away in search of work.
That's so inspiring. And you know how I love coffee.
Yes, I know how much you love your coffee, so I think this will be a great documentary for you. And what's great about this is that the Grammy-winning musician Alanis Morissette was also so inspired by the story and co-wrote the anthem of this film with the Costa Rican artist and also Grammy winner Carlos de Patos Vargas. And proceeds from this song actually went towards education and scholarships for women in coffee.
That's amazing.
I know. I also know that the movie has less to do with sustainable event planning, but I think it's a great example of how supporting small and fair trade businesses can give communities like this a shot at a better life.
Absolutely. And it's also a reminder for companies to be mindful of their supply chain and know where their goods are coming from. They have the choice to work with this type of companies who support initiatives like this.
Absolutely. And okay, I know we're probably gonna be able to keep going on forever recommending sustainability focused books and movies and podcasts, but we don't have all day. So I'm going to wrap it up here with the last one called The Years Project. They're a coalition of journalists, strategists, artists, and filmmakers who have banded together to produce content to educate and empower people about climate change. Their Years of Living Dangerously TV series is on Showtime and has even received support from James Cameron, who is the famous director behind the Avatar movies, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is one of the leading actors in the Terminator series. The Years Project also has over 200 videos on YouTube that you can access and just pick for a topic that, interests you.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Tammy.
Mhm.
I think it's great that sustainability resources are on such diverse platforms and mediums so people have a choice on what method match their learning styles. Thus, our recommendation for leaders who are building training and education plans is to compile resources and education materials in various types of formats to keep things engaging for their learners and also inclusive for diverse learning styles.
Yep. You can take the books we suggested, add them to your training guide, and then go to any of these podcasts and YouTube videos, ours, including ours, of course, and the Years Project, and pick out a couple that resonate with your business or your team and add them to the training guide as well.
I love it. And of course, in addition to our channel, Tammy and I are also here as a resource for you. You can connect with us via the comments or send us an email. All this combined is like your very own Sustainable Event Planners Onboarding Guide 101. So, with that, Tammy, are there any other parting thoughts you'd like to add before we wrap up today's episode?
Yeah, one last thought. I want to reiterate that events don't happen in a bubble because we're designing experiences for people. We tend to have to be selective about the place it's hosted in and who attends them and what they're getting out of it. And that means that we also need to zoom out and think bigger about the planet and all of its people. Being a sustainable event planner doesn't have to stop at creating plant-based menus or picking a LEED certified building. Events and all of the people who plan and attend them can be influencers of change.
Yes, that's very well said, Tammy. It's why some of the resources we shared today expands outside of the events industry. To understand why sustainability is important in events, you also need to understand the broader picture of how sustainability and events fit into the world we live in.
Love it. Thanks, Martine, for wrapping us up so nicely.
Of course, and for our audience, if you love today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're always in the loop.
Thanks for sipping with us today. We'll see you next week for another deep dive. Until then, keep making conscious choices one sip at a time. Bye.
Bye.